The manipulator is a master of control, often working behind the scenes to bend reality to her will. She has a way of making you feel as though everything that goes wrong is somehow your fault, even when you know deep down it's not. Her words are carefully crafted to plant seeds of doubt in your mind, to convince you that you owe her more than you can ever give. She knows just how to push your buttons, how to make you second-guess your decisions, your instincts, your sense of self. At first, it can be hard to see because she wears a mask of sweetness and charm, creating an illusion of kindness. She may be the one to offer help when you're down, the one to comfort you when you're vulnerable, and in doing so, she earns your trust. But then slowly over time, she begins to ask for things in return, things that don't seem quite right at first, but the more she speaks, the more convincing her arguments become. She'll tell you that you owe her, that she's done so much for you, and you start to wonder if she's right. After all, didn't she step in when no one else would? Didn't she always seem to know what you needed even when you didn't? She uses guilt as a weapon, subtly reminding you of past favors or perceived wrongs, making you feel as if you're indebted to her in some way. And with each request, each little favor, you become more entangled in her web, until you find yourself doing things you wouldn't normally do, sacrificing parts of yourself just to keep the peace or to meet her demands. The manipulator knows how to take advantage of your good nature, your compassion. She thrives in situations where empathy is present, turning your kindness into something she can exploit. When you try to set boundaries, she'll make you feel selfish, unreasonable, or even heartless. She's so skilled at twisting the narrative that you begin to doubt your own feelings, questioning if you're overreacting or being too sensitive. Slowly but surely, she chips away at your self-esteem and confidence, leaving you feeling uncertain and reliant on her approval. And when the manipulation reaches its peak, you might realize that you've been giving more than you've received, that you've been sacrificing your peace, your happiness, your authenticity, all in the name of keeping her satisfied. But by the time the truth becomes clear, it's often too late. You've been worn down, emotionally exhausted, and disconnected from your own sense of self-worth. It's a slow burn, but it's real. The manipulator might leave you feeling like you're the problem when in reality, she's the one creating the chaos. She doesn't love you for who you are, she loves you for what she can extract from you. In her eyes, people are tools, not individuals to be cherished, and she uses those around her to fill her own empty spaces without ever truly giving anything of herself in return. The jealous heart is a destructive force that grows quietly like a weed in the garden of relationships. It begins as a seed of comparison, a small whisper of doubt that takes root in the mind. At first, it may seem harmless, even just a passing thought. She notices someone else's success or beauty, and there's a brief twinge of discomfort, maybe a fleeting thought that she wishes she had what they have. But for the woman with a jealous heart, these thoughts don't just pass, they take hold and begin to grow, overshadowing her ability to appreciate anything or anyone without comparison. Every achievement, every joy that someone else experiences becomes a threat. What should be an opportunity for celebration instead becomes a reason for resentment. She can't be happy for others because the success or happiness of others feels like a personal affront. Every compliment directed at someone else feels like a blow to her ego. And instead of feeling inspired by others' progress, she feels diminished, as though there's not enough room in the world for her and everyone else to thrive. Jealousy transforms into bitterness, and with it comes a constant undercurrent of negativity. She may try to undermine others subtly or overtly. The woman with a jealous heart is often quick to find flaws in others' successes, diminishing their worth in order to feel better about her own perceived shortcomings. Instead of lifting others up, she brings them down to her level, not out of malice, but because it gives her a false sense of comfort to see someone else falter. It's as if their misfortune is somehow a validation of her own. The jealousy grows deeper, morphing into a kind of constant comparison. She may scrutinize the achievements of others, always asking herself why she doesn't have the same opportunities or recognition. Instead of working toward her own goals, she spends more time thinking about how others are doing better than her. In her mind, there is always someone who has more, someone who is further along, and this comparison only fuels her insecurities. This jealousy seeps into her relationships too. She'll feel threatened by the attention others get, and sometimes even go so far as to sabotage those relationships, creating rifts where none need to exist. Whether it's through passive-aggressive comments, gossip, or subtle competition, she creates a sense of division. It becomes less about supporting others and more about positioning herself in a way that makes her feel superior, even if she has to tear others down to get there. And yet, no matter how much she compares or competes, the jealousy never really goes away. It leaves her feeling empty, always chasing after something she can never truly catch. While others find peace and contentment in their own lives, she remains restless, constantly looking outward rather than inward, unable to see the value in herself because she's too focused on what others have. At its core, a jealous heart is a heart full of fear, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being left behind, the fear of fading into the background. But the truth is, no amount of comparison, no amount of jealousy can ever bring her the peace or the success she craves. It only isolates her further, preventing her from experiencing the joy of her own life and the love of those who truly care for her. The deceiver is a master of illusion, creating a carefully crafted image of herself that hides her true intentions. She speaks with a smooth, reassuring voice, her words wrapped in honeyed tones that make you feel safe, comfortable, even special. She knows exactly what to say to make you believe in her sincerity, to make you trust her. And for a time, it's hard to imagine that anything could be wrong. But beneath the surface, the deceiver's words are as hollow as the promises she makes. She speaks with one face, but hides another. And in time, you begin to see that the story she tells doesn't match the reality of who she truly is. Her lies are often subtle, cleverly disguised as truths. She'll tell you just enough to make you believe in her honesty, but not so much that you can see the full picture. She may reveal bits of herself, but always in a way that feels curated, controlled. It's a mask she wears, one that makes her appear kind, understanding, and trustworthy, but the deeper you go, the more the cracks begin to show. The story she tells seems to shift with each telling, her facts changing, her version of events evolving. And the more you listen, the more you begin to doubt yourself, wondering if you've misheard, misjudged, or misunderstood. It's easy to fall under her spell because she knows how to appeal to your emotions. She knows the right buttons to push to make you feel sympathy for her, to make you believe that she needs your help, your support, or your forgiveness. She may paint herself as the victim in every situation, the one who's been wronged, the one who needs saving, all while her actions speak a different truth. She manipulates your empathy, drawing you into her narrative until you're so deeply invested that you can't see the manipulation right in front of you. She's the type of person who knows how to play the game. She'll tell you exactly what you want to hear, giving you just enough to keep you coming back for more. She may promise change, offer apologies, or pretend to care in a way that feels genuine, but it's always temporary. Once she's gained your trust, once you've let your guard down, she'll begin to use that trust to her advantage, often without you even realizing it. The deceiver doesn't just lie to others, she lies to herself too. She believes her own fabrications, twisting the truth so many times that she becomes convinced of her own narrative. Her lies become her reality, and the line between what's true and what's false becomes increasingly blurred. She has a way of manipulating not just the world around her, but also her own mind, convincing herself that she is justified in her actions, that what she's doing is necessary or even right. And when the truth finally comes to light, it's often too late. The deceiver has already caused damage, already manipulated situations, already planted seeds of doubt and confusion in the minds of those around her. People are left questioning their own perceptions, unsure of what to believe or whom to trust. The trust that has been broken is difficult, if not impossible, to rebuild. And even if the deceiver is confronted, she may never admit the truth, may never truly acknowledge the hurt she's caused. Instead, she may try to shift the blame onto others, turning the tables, creating more confusion, more conflict. Ultimately, the deceiver leaves destruction in her wake. She leaves behind people who feel betrayed, confused, and emotionally drained. Her web of lies catches more and more people, and though they may see the truth eventually, they've already been wounded. The deceiver may continue on her path, weaving new stories, finding new victims, but she will never truly find peace. Because in the end, a life built on deception is a life that is constantly on the verge of crumbling, and no matter how many lies are told, the truth always finds a way to surface. The soul sucker is a person who operates in the shadows, draining the very life force of those around her. She doesn't take physical things from you, but she takes something far more precious: your energy, your joy, your sense of self. At first, it's not always obvious. She might present herself as someone who needs help, someone who is constantly going through struggles, always leaning on others for support. She becomes the center of attention in any room, not by loud gestures or demands, but by silently drawing all focus onto her. Her needs, her problems, her emotions, they take up all the space, leaving little room for anyone else to express themselves or feel seen. Over time, the soul sucker begins to consume more than just your time. She feeds off your empathy, your kindness, your emotional availability. She will call on you when she's in crisis, and you'll find yourself rushing to her side, eager to help, to offer comfort, or to listen. But the more you give, the less you seem to receive. The more you invest, the more she demands. No matter how much you give, it's never enough. She will find ways to keep pulling you deeper into her orbit until you're giving all of yourself just to keep her calm, to keep her happy, to keep her happy, to keep her from spiraling. And the more you give to her, the more she takes. It's like a one-way street, with you pouring out your heart, your soul, your energy, while she takes and takes without ever replenishing you. Over time, you begin to feel empty. The person you once were, the one who was vibrant, confident, and full of life, begins to fade. You start to feel smaller, more drained, as if you're slowly losing parts of yourself that you can't quite get back. You try to recover, to reclaim your energy, but it's hard when she keeps pulling you back into her orbit, needing more, wanting more, taking more. It's not that she's evil or malicious in the traditional sense. Rather, she's someone who is unaware or unwilling to see the toll her behavior takes on others. Her own insecurities and emptiness drive her to seek validation and energy from those around her, and she does so without realizing that it's draining you to the point of exhaustion. But in the end, if you don't protect your own energy, if you don't reclaim your soul, you'll find yourself lost, depleted, and no longer able to give from a place of abundance. The soul sucker can only take as much as you're willing to give. And once you realize that your own peace and happiness are worth more than being her emotional caretaker, you will begin to reclaim the parts of yourself she took. The choice to stop feeding the cycle is the first step toward healing, toward rediscovering the strength and vitality that were once yours. The heartbreaker moves through life with an air of confidence, using charm and charisma to captivate those around her. She has an innate ability to make people feel special, to make them believe that they are the one, the only, the most important. She pulls them in with her magnetic personality, with her attention, with her affection. But once she has you, once she's drawn you in, something shifts. What seemed like genuine connection now feels like manipulation, as though you were merely a pawn in her game, a temporary player in a scenario that's been carefully scripted from the start. She doesn't fall in love the way others do. To her, love is not about deep, lasting connections or mutual care. It's about what she can take, what she can gain. She gives just enough to make you feel adored, just enough to keep you hooked, but never enough to truly build anything substantial. It's a constant dance of hot and cold, of being pulled in close, only to be pushed away when you start to expect more. She knows how to play the game, how to make you chase, how to make you yearn, and how to keep you on your toes, always uncertain of where you stand. When you start to invest your heart, to believe that you've found someone worth holding on to, she becomes distant, emotionally unavailable. She may act as though she's too busy, too tired, too caught up in her own life to give you the attention you crave. And just when you begin to pull away, when you start to let go, she pulls you back in. Maybe with a simple text, a small act of affection, or a fleeting moment of connection. But it's always short-lived. Soon enough, you're back in the same cycle, desperate for the next morsel of love, chasing the thrill of her attention, always unsure of where you stand. It's not that she doesn't care at all. It's that her idea of care is twisted. She might genuinely like you, but her love is shallow, superficial, and fleeting. She's not looking for a partner to build a life with, but rather someone to fill an emotional void, to serve a temporary need. When she gets what she wants, whether it's validation, attention, or something else, she withdraws, leaving you wondering what went wrong. But in truth, the problem wasn't with you. It was always with her inability or unwillingness to give real love, to offer anything deeper than surface level affection. The heartbreaker doesn't always realize the extent of the damage she causes. She might believe that she's not doing anything wrong, that she's not leading anyone on intentionally, that her behavior is just a result of her own emotional limitations. But in reality, she knows exactly what she's doing. She enjoys the power, the control, the attention that she gets from others, and when she's done with someone, she simply moves on to the next person, leaving a trail of broken hearts behind her. As the relationship progresses, you might start to feel like you're walking on eggshells, always trying to please her, always trying to figure out how to get the affection you crave. You might begin to feel like you're not enough, like no matter how much you give, no matter how much love you pour into her, it's never enough. Your emotional needs begin to go unmet, and you start to lose yourself in the process of trying to make her happy, trying to win her love. But in the end, the heartbreaker doesn't stay. She moves on, leaving you to pick up the pieces of your heart. You're left feeling discarded, unloved, unsure of what went wrong, questioning your worth. And for a while, it may hurt. It may take time to realize that you were never the problem, that you gave everything you could, but she wasn't capable of giving the same in return. It's a painful realization, but one that ultimately allows you to heal. The heartbreaker leaves you stronger in the end, though it may take time to see that. Once you understand the cycle, once you recognize that her actions weren't a reflection of your worth, but rather her own inability to love deeply, you begin to find peace. You learn to guard your heart, to not give it away so freely to someone who isn't capable of honoring it. You realize that real love is not about playing games or leaving someone in emotional limbo, but about deep, unconditional care and mutual respect. And in that realization, you reclaim your own power. The heartbreaker may have left her mark, but she won't define you. Instead, you'll find someone who knows how to love without reservation, someone who appreciates you for who you are and who will stay, not because you're chasing them, but because they want to walk beside you every step of the way. The cruelty in silence is a subtle and insidious form of manipulation. It doesn't come with shouting or harsh words, rather, it is the absence of them, a cold and deliberate withholding of communication and affection. In this form of cruelty, a person uses silence as a weapon, creating a void where there should be understanding, empathy, and connection. It's a tactic that can be even more damaging than verbal insults because it leaves the other person guessing, wondering, questioning. It creates an emotional isolation that can feel suffocating. At first, it might seem like nothing more than a passing mood, a temporary distance. The silent treatment may come when she's upset or when she's trying to assert control, but over time, it becomes a pattern. She withdraws emotionally, shutting you out, refusing to engage with you, leaving you with nothing but the echoes of your own thoughts. The silence is deafening. It speaks volumes without uttering a single word, filling the space between you with unspoken tension, resentment, and fear. You begin to feel as though you're walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might provoke more silence, unsure of what you've done wrong, but terrified of the consequences if you don't figure it out. The cruelty lies in how silence is used to control, to punish, and to break down a person's sense of self-worth. It isn't a simple withdrawal, it's a methodical erasure of the other person's emotional presence. In her silence, she makes you feel invisible, as though you no longer matter, as though your words, your feelings, and your very existence are not worth acknowledging. It's an emotional abandonment disguised as a passive act, but its effect is profound. The person on the receiving end of this cruelty is left in a constant state of confusion, trying to decipher the cause of the silence, desperate for any form of communication to break the tension. In many ways, this cruelty is more damaging than loud arguments or overt aggression. At least with open conflict, there is some form of resolution, or at least the opportunity for it. Silence, however, is a slow burn. It forces you to question your every word and action, wondering what you could have said or done differently to make things better, only to find no answer, no explanation. It forces you to exist in an emotional limbo, where nothing feels stable or secure. You may begin to doubt yourself, wondering if you are the problem, if you are somehow unworthy of love or attention, when in reality it's the silence itself that is the problem. The person who uses silence as a tool of cruelty often does so without remorse. They know how to manipulate the situation, how to control the other person by simply refusing to speak. Sometimes the silence is followed by a brief return to normalcy, giving you false hope, only to slip back into the silence again. This cycle is draining and disorienting, leaving you emotionally exhausted, unsure of where you stand or how to make things right. Every attempt to reach out, to bridge the gap, is met with more silence, reinforcing the idea that you are unimportant, that you are not deserving of her time or attention. What makes silence so cruel is that it leaves no room for resolution. There are no arguments to fight through, no words to forgive. Instead, there is only a void, a chasm that grows wider with every passing moment. You are left to fill in the blanks, to guess what went wrong, to imagine scenarios in your head that only serve to deepen the pain. And because there is no clarity, no closure, it becomes a cycle that never truly ends, always leaving you in a state of unresolved emotional turmoil. Eventually, the toll of this cruelty becomes evident. It starts to chip away at your confidence, your sense of self, and your ability to trust. The longer you are subjected to the cruelty of silence, the more isolated you become. It is in these moments that you start to question whether the relationship is worth continuing. You wonder if anyone can truly love you and yet treat you with such cold indifference. The silence becomes a reflection of something deeper, a lack of respect, a lack of care, a lack of emotional investment. In the end, the cruelty in silence is not about what's said or what's left unsaid, but about the power dynamics it creates. It is a method of control, a way to dominate someone's emotions without lifting a finger. It leaves you feeling small, unworthy, and alone, and when it continues for too long, you can forget what it feels like to be valued or heard. The silence may not scream, but its effects echo long after the last word has been left unspoken. The hypocrite's behavior often goes unnoticed at first. She is charming, convincing, and persuasive. She speaks with authority about what's right and wrong, what should be done, and what should be avoided. She leads others to believe she is someone who lives by her words, someone whose actions align with her beliefs. She can be the first to point fingers, to demand accountability from others, to hold people to a high standard, and in doing so, she gains the respect and admiration of those around her. But underneath the surface, she operates on a different set of rules that conveniently bend to suit her needs, her desires, and her comfort. When she is caught in her hypocrisy, she may react defensively, denying any wrongdoing. She may even accuse others of misunderstanding her, twisting her intentions, or misinterpreting her actions. The hypocrite is rarely forthcoming with the truth. She hides behind excuses, deflections, or outright lies, spinning narratives that allow her to maintain the image she has so carefully cultivated. The contrast between her public persona and her private actions can be stark, yet she will do whatever it takes to protect her reputation, often at the expense of those who are deceived by her. This duality in the hypocrite's nature creates an emotional toll on those around her. Relationships become strained as people begin to sense the disparity between what she says and what she does. Her actions feel like betrayals because she presents herself as someone who values honesty, fairness, and integrity, yet her behavior says otherwise. She may promise one thing only to do another, or she may openly criticize others for actions that she herself takes without remorse. She might be quick to lecture others on how to behave or what to believe, but when it comes to holding herself accountable, she deflects, avoids, or simply ignores the need for self-examination. Her hypocrisy often leads to an erosion of trust. The people who once admired her for her strong convictions may begin to feel disillusioned, seeing her for what she truly is, someone who is only concerned with how others perceive her. rather than living authentically. There's a sense of betrayal because the hypocrite, at her core, isn't what she claims to be. She is not as virtuous, as moral, as kind, or as honest as she projects to the world. Her words are empty, and her actions reveal the truth of her character. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of a hypocrite is that she often lacks any real self-awareness. She may not see the disconnect between her words and her actions, or if she does, she may choose to ignore it. This denial allows her to continue operating in the same way, manipulating perceptions and avoiding scrutiny. She convinces herself that her behavior is justified or that others are simply too critical, that they don't understand the complexities of her situation. In her mind, the rules don't apply to her the same way they apply to others. Living in the shadow of a hypocrite is exhausting. It leaves people questioning their own beliefs and values, wondering whether they've been misled or manipulated. They may begin to doubt their own judgment, second-guessing whether they've been unfair to her or whether their feelings of discomfort are unjustified. In the end, the hypocrite creates a web of deceit where the truth is obscured, and people are left wondering what's real and what's not. The hypocrite's actions not only harm others, but ultimately prevent her from living an authentic life. Her constant need to maintain an image, to live up to the standards she sets for others, leaves her trapped in the cycle of deception. She may never experience true personal growth because she is too focused on appearances to look inward and confront her own flaws. By pretending to be something she is not, she denies herself the opportunity to grow, to learn, and to change. Over time, the truth has a way of surfacing, and the hypocrite is often exposed. When the cracks in her facade become too large to ignore, when people begin to see through the lies and contradictions, her once impressive image crumbles. The people she has deceived may walk away disillusioned and hurt, and the hypocrite is left alone with the consequences of her actions. But even in this, she may continue to justify her behavior, never fully acknowledging the harm she has caused or the truth of who she really is. In the end, the hypocrite is a reminder that authenticity and integrity matter more than appearances. While it may be easy to project an image of righteousness, the truth always finds a way to reveal itself. True strength lies in being honest with oneself and others, and living in alignment with one's values, and in embracing vulnerability rather than hiding behind a mask of perfection. The bitterness within her manifests in small, subtle ways, often disguised as sarcasm, criticism, or cold indifference. She may smile on the surface, but her eyes betray a deeper hardness, a guardedness that keeps the world at arm's length. She can be quick to judge, to point out the flaws in others, often with an edge that cuts deep. There is a sense of superiority in her judgment, as though the world owes her something that it has never delivered. Every word, every action seems to be colored by the bitterness she's accumulated over time. She doesn't trust easily, and she's slow to forgive, often holding on to grudges for far longer than is healthy or necessary. Her bitterness can be contagious. Those who spend time around her start to feel the weight of her negativity, as if it hangs in the air like a thick fog. People may find themselves walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might trigger her ire. Over time, it becomes clear that her bitterness is not just about the things that have happened to her, but about her unwillingness to move past them. She clings to her wounds, using them as a shield to protect herself from further pain, but also preventing herself from experiencing true healing or growth. She might say things like, "I've been hurt too many times to trust anyone," or "people always let me down." And through these words, she distances herself from any hope of joy or connection. The bitter spirit is often caught in a cycle of self-sabotage. She may push people away because she fears being hurt again, yet her isolation only deepens her bitterness. The more she distances herself from others, the more she feeds into the narrative that the world is out to get her, that everyone is against her. And that happiness is something others experience, but not her. She has been disappointed, let down, or betrayed in the past, and those wounds, real or imagined, have left scars that are never fully healed. Instead of finding ways to move forward, she holds on to those scars, allowing them to shape her outlook on life. She may become skeptical of anything good, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, for things to go wrong. Where others might find joy, she finds cynicism. Where others celebrate victory, she looks for flaws. She may believe that happiness is fleeting or undeserved and that success is only temporary. Her view of the world is tainted by her experiences, and she has difficulty believing that things can change for the better. The bitter spirit is convinced that she's seen the worst of people in the world and that nothing good can last. One of the most painful aspects of the bitter spirit is the way it poisons relationships. She pushes people away, either directly through harsh words or indirectly by withdrawing emotionally. She may find it difficult to be vulnerable, unwilling to trust others enough to let them in. Instead of allowing herself to be open, she keeps everyone at arm's length, unable to fully invest in the love and connections that might heal her heart. Her relationships are shallow, characterized by walls of resentment and distrust, and those around her often feel the emotional distance, even if they don't understand where it comes from. When she does allow herself to feel something positive, she may quickly dismiss it, telling herself that it won't last, that it's just a fleeting moment of relief before more pain comes. She can't allow herself to fully embrace happiness because it feels too vulnerable, too risky. Happiness in her mind is a lie that eventually leads to disappointment. Her bitterness has taught her to expect the worst to protect herself from any future hurt, and in doing so, she denies herself the joy and fulfillment that she so desperately craves. The bitter spirit is often unaware of the toll her negativity takes on herself and others. She may justify her bitterness, convincing herself that it is a form of protection, a way to shield herself from further hurt. But the truth is that she is only hurting herself. The longer she holds onto her bitterness, the more it rots her soul, leaving her emotionally drained, exhausted, and disconnected from the very things that could heal her. She is trapped in a prison of her own making, one that she has built with her past pain, her fears, and her unwillingness to forgive. Healing from the bitterness requires a willingness to let go, letting go of the need to hold on to past hurts, to use them as a shield against the world. It requires the courage to confront the wounds that have shaped her and to allow herself to feel and experience life with all its vulnerability. It's a long, difficult journey, one that involves learning to trust again, to open up, and to embrace the possibility of happiness and connection. But it's also a journey that can lead to freedom, a freedom from the bitterness that has held her captive for so long, and a freedom to live with an open heart once more. In the end, the bitter spirit is not inherently bad, but a person who has been hurt and is still carrying the weight of those wounds. The challenge is to break free from the cycle of resentment, to find healing and peace, and to rediscover the beauty and possibility that lies on the other side of pain. It is in letting go of bitterness that true emotional liberation begins, allowing space for joy, love, and hope to enter once again. The attention seeker is a person who craves constant validation and recognition, whose entire sense of self-worth hinges on the attention she can draw from others. She is often loud, dramatic, or over the top in her behavior, seeking to make herself the center of any conversation or situation. Every move she makes, every word she speaks is designed to attract eyes, to elicit reactions, and to ensure that all focus is on her. She thrives on being noticed, whether through praise, sympathy, or admiration, and will go to great lengths to ensure that she occupies the space at the forefront of others' thoughts. In social settings, she is often the first to speak, the first to make herself known, and the last to fade into the background. Her actions are often exaggerated, whether it's telling an overly dramatic story, performing in an eccentric way, or making bold statements that demand a response. The attention seeker isn't just seeking approval, she's seeking to be the focal point of the room, to control the flow of conversation and energy. She has an innate need to be seen, not just heard, and will do whatever it takes to stay in the spotlight. This constant need for attention can often lead to superficial relationships, as people may initially be drawn in by her charisma, her energy, or her charm, only to find that these traits are used to manipulate situations. The attention seeker may not always be honest or sincere in her interactions because her primary goal is not to form genuine connections, but to receive praise, admiration, or sympathy. She may play the role of the victim, recounting tales of misfortune to gain sympathy and draw others to her. Or she may constantly try to top everyone else's stories with even more outlandish tales to ensure that she's the one everyone is focused on. There's often a level of insecurity driving the attention seeker. She may not feel validated or worthy unless others are constantly affirming her. Without the approval of those around her, she can feel empty, as if she's invisible or unimportant. The need for constant attention is a way to fill that void, but it's never truly satisfying. The more attention she gets, the more she craves, and the cycle continues. Even in moments when she seems to have everyone's eyes on her, there is often a lingering sense of restlessness, a nagging feeling that it isn't enough, that it won't last. In many ways, the attention seeker is often stuck in a loop of seeking approval and recognition that never truly satisfies. While the attention and admiration of others can bring temporary joy, the internal void remains. The more she seeks, the more she becomes disconnected from true self-worth. Her sense of value becomes dependent on external validation, and when it isn't forthcoming, she can become anxious, upset, or resentful. If her need for attention is ignored or overshadowed, she may lash out or escalate her behavior, trying even harder to regain the spotlight. This constant pursuit of attention can also prevent the attention seeker from forming authentic bonds. Instead of building relationships based on mutual respect and understanding, her interactions are transactional, revolving around what she can get from others. There may be little room for true emotional intimacy or deep connection because the focus is always on her need to be admired or adored. Over time, people may start to see through the facade, recognizing that her behaviors are rooted in insecurity rather than genuine charm. The more this happens, the more the attention seeker may feel the need to escalate her behavior, using more extreme tactics or manipulation to regain control. One of the most difficult aspects of being an isolationist is the inner conflict between the desire for connection and the need for space. On one hand, she wants to be understood, to be seen, and to feel the comfort of human connection. On the other hand, she fears the emotional messiness that relationships can bring. She sees intimacy as something that requires effort, energy, and the possibility of disappointment. It feels safer to retreat into herself, to stay in control of her environment rather than risk the unpredictability of emotional engagement. Her relationships, when they do exist, tend to be superficial or distant. She may keep friendships at arm's length, not allowing anyone to get too close or too personal. When she does connect with others, it often feels strained, as though she's going through the motions, but never truly allowing anyone to see her for who she really is. She may appear cold or indifferent to those who try to reach out, not because she doesn't care, but because she doesn't know how to navigate the vulnerability that comes with emotional intimacy. Her interactions can seem shallow or detached, as though she's holding back, hiding a part of herself that she's unwilling to reveal. Over time, the isolationist begins to feel the effects of her retreat from the world. She might struggle with feelings of loneliness, but at the same time, she feels trapped by her own withdrawal. The longer she isolates herself, the harder it becomes to reintegrate into the social circles she once inhabited. There's a growing sense of disconnection, not just from others, but from herself as well. She may lose touch with her own needs, her desires, and her identity. In the silence of her solitude, she becomes increasingly disconnected from the world around her, caught in a paradox where she yearns for connection but feels incapable of opening herself up to it. The isolationist may never fully understand how her behavior is affecting her life. She may justify her solitude by convincing herself that she's protecting her peace or avoiding drama, but in truth, she's closing herself off from experiences that could bring fulfillment and joy. The longer she isolates herself, the more she reinforces the belief that she is better off alone, but this only serves to deepen her feelings of isolation. In the quiet of her own company, she can never escape the truth that, while isolation offers temporary relief, it doesn't provide the lasting fulfillment of human connection.